Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome along to tonight's panel discussion talking all things offshore shorthanded sailing with a mixed crew. We've obviously got a great panel here this evening, so it'd be rude not to pick their brains about all things offshore racing, but with the kind of, plan for the evening to really get into the pointy end of things, talking about Paris 2024 and the inclusion of the mixed two-handed offshore keelboat, which I know a lot of people are here for, and it's great to see a mix of ages, obviously the young through to the not so young, and that's the great thing, I think, and the appeal about this offshore keelboat is that it is going to draw in a real range of people. So before we get into things, I'll introduce the panel for tonight. We'll start down the far end, and quite the rap sheet to start. So we've got Mike Sanderson, who most people know as Moose, CEO of Doyle Sails and one of the most illustrious inshore and offshore sailors of our time. At 35, Mike became the youngest skipper to ever win the Volvo Ocean Race with his crew on board ABN AMRO 1. He has 4 Whitbread/Volvo Ocean races to his name: Endeavour, Merritt Cup, ABN AMRO and Team Sanya, of which he won 2. It's still going. A veteran of 3 America's Cups campaigns, ISAF Rolex World Sailor of the Year in 2006, Mike also spends a huge part of his time sailing with some of the most successful Grand Prix and super yacht campaigns around the world, although that's not all competitive. There's a bit of fun in there, I know. And then we move on to Mike's better half, Emma Sanderson, and your rap sheet's quite impressive as well. At the age of 23, Emma was chosen as a crew member aboard Tracy Edwards' all-girl Royal Sun Alliance that tried to win the Jules Verne Trophy. The girls were on course to capture the record when disaster hit and they lost their mast in the Southern Ocean. In 2003, Emma became the first British woman and youngest person to compete the 29,000-mile around-alone yacht race, where she spent more than 132 days at sea on board her Open 60 Pindar and was the only woman in a field of 13. Emma was also part of the Amur Sports 2 Volvo Ocean Race campaign in 01 and 02. Bianca Cook. Bianca is one of our brightest young talents and a real emerging star in the offshore racing scene. I had the privilege to meet Bianca during the last Volvo Ocean Race, where she was on the crew with Dee Cavari and the team on Turn the Tide on Plastic. And now Bianca has got her eyes firmly set on the next ocean race, hopefully sooner rather than later, and becoming the first Kiwi woman to skipper a boat in the 2021 edition of the race. Stu Bannatyne, last but not least, the king of the Southern Ocean, as some say. I don't think many would argue with that, actually. 8 Volvo Ocean races to your name, Stu, and you've won 4 of them. Not bad. Stu is renowned for being one of the toughest sailors on the planet, alongside his even temperament and natural skill to make boats go fast. While he's always drawn to the Southern Ocean, Stu is often on the start line for all major offshore races worldwide, and I hear he's about to get back into some short-handed stuff. But before we get into that, we've got a great video to take a look at some amazing sailors that involve our great panel for the evening. Let's have a look.
Moment. This is my Olympic medal. This is my climbing of Mount Everest. This is my childhood dream, to get to skipper a boat and win it in the Volvo Ocean Race.
I think that deserves a round of applause. I think we'd all agree, you watch that video and this panel we've got here has been through a lot and we're quite lucky to have them. The rap sheet really does go on. So it's awesome to have our panel here tonight. My name's Jesse Chuk and I'll be firing some questions at this lot throughout the evening. I know a lot of you out there have sent through questions that you want answered. We're going to keep this nice and open. Mike's going to touch on it soon, but if questions come up throughout the evening, we will open the floor at the end. I'll run around with the microphone, so write down those questions so you don't forget. But Mike, before we get into it, obviously you've been a key part of tonight, as has Doyle Sales and Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. But tell us, what's the vision? What's your vision here for the evening?
Yeah, thanks, Jesse, and thank you everyone for coming along tonight. It's a great opportunity. To be honest, I really enjoyed the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, and I think I was mentioning this to you. Just the brutal honesty of those interviews and things. And I thought, why don't we do something like that with two-handed sailing? Why don't we have a chance? It is being recorded, but I can tell you it's not being live streamed. The idea here tonight is that we give you our honest, un-PC, maybe even unedited, as I said on my Facebook post, press officer's script sheet answer to what we would do if the ultimate result was to win. Because at the end of the day, I think most of you are probably like me, a big part of our enjoyment comes from success. And, it's very satisfying to do well, and even if that's well within your own goals and things. So I'm not talking about just winning, So I think that's what we want to do tonight is, Jesse's going to ask us some tough questions, and we're going to answer them with total honesty. And, it's not going to be a night hearing about particularly Stu and Bianca and I, because most of you have probably heard our story at one of these speeches already. I feel very privileged to have Emma here tonight. For those of you that don't know, she doesn't talk about this a lot. There's quite a few people, if it was broadcast, would get a hell of a shock at the school gates tomorrow morning. But, so, yeah, she's known for Charlie the dog and the 3 kids by most of the people in our area. But, what she did was amazing, and we'll hear more of those stories tonight. And again, we're going to ask us all some tough questions, which we're going to answer very honestly, in the hope of that helps people, with your existing campaign. Hopefully it's going to inspire people to put campaigns together. Obviously, we mentioned the Olympics and what it's going to take to get to France 2024, or whenever that might happen to be taking place now. But, in reality, whether it's the Lumar Triple Series or whether it's, Saturday afternoon squadron race, we all here are putting teams together, and the makeup and the chemistry of those teams and what's important is the key to them. So let's get some good questions out there, and let's enjoy it. Please ask away at the end. We will save some time. Don't hold back. This is your chance to ask, and we will promise to answer them as responsibly as we can. Thanks, Jesse.
No worries. So what we'll do, I said, we'll start quite wide with general offshore stuff and then narrow down to the end, which is the pointy end, is talking about France 2024, the hard questions about what's it really going to take, because I think a lot of people here do want to know that. But Stu, we'll start nice and easy. Offshore racing, you've done more of it than anyone in this room. How did you get into it? What makes a good offshore racer?
I got into it, I guess I grew to find a love for it during the 89-90 Whitbread race. Obviously the 2 Kiwi catchers making a great show of it there, and that really grabbed my attention. I was still finishing off at school and first year of university at that time, and had always wanted to explore sailing as a possible career, but watching that race and being in Auckland when those boats arrived really got me hooked. And from then on, it was doing what I could to get involved into that. I was very fortunate to get a shot at having a go on New Zealand Endeavour fairly late in the piece before the start, and didn't muck things up too badly, and they kept me on for that, and I really got hooked on that one, and that was me. I just wanted to do every one after that.
On that note, you're talking about New Zealand and Bianca. I know that was such a big thing for you as well, just seeing the boats here and then how special it was for you coming into New Zealand. Was that something like Stu that got you into ocean racing in general?
Yeah, I think it's that 89-90 year in the race that everyone hears about, and my dad, built Steinlager too, and I always heard about the Whitbread and always dreamed about doing it. And it was actually when Telefonica and Camper were battling it out coming up the harbour, and that was when I was like, wow, this is awesome. I was out on a little family boat getting rolled around in the rest of the washing machine that was out there, but seeing those boats come in and just seeing how excited the rest of Auckland got when all the boats came in was what really made me want to do the race. And I always wanted to do it on a New Zealand team, but I got the opportunity to do it with Di Kafari on a United Nations team, and sailing into Auckland. We had a good leg, but we went from third to fifth, and I've said in interviews before, my team was absolutely devastated, but for me, that was my childhood dream, sailing into Auckland in the Volvo, so I was on cloud nine.
Yeah, I must say, that was probably one of the hardest interviews I've had to do. Just seeing those, as Di Kafari, the pesky red boats just coming roaring down the east coastline, but it was still an amazing achievement, something to be proud of. Emma, for you, obviously, Auckland marked a starting point in a lot of offshore racing for you, but how did you get into it in general, and, as we haven't touched on it, what does it take to go offshore? What do you need? Obviously, a boat's good.
Yeah, boat's a good start. So for me, offshore started after university. I sailed dinghies all through my childhood and through university. I had read every book possible about ocean racing, and I had just read Peter Blake's book about Enza, apples and pears, and was looking for a summer job, moved from Scotland where I grew up, south coast of England, and saw this catamaran and thought, wow, that looks really like the Enza apples and pears without the stickers on. And sure enough, it was ready to go around, start a campaign with an all-female crew to try and break Sir Peter Blake's world record, his Jules Verne Trophy record of 74 days. And so I asked if I could possibly get a job. They asked if I was trying out for the crew, and I said yes. And so that's how my ocean racing started.
So at that point, you'd done no ocean racing?
Oh, I'd sailed from Scotland to Norway, and then Scotland out to outer islands, and that was it. That was my offshore experience.
Different kettle of fish.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what I wrote on my resume. That's irrelevant. But 2 years in, I got to do all their training runs, cross-channel, learned as I went, around Bannatyne Island, a couple of transatlantics, and then I was on the crew for around the world. So that's how I got in.
Quite the story, and I think the common theme, is, it seems you got to put yourself out there. I think, everyone here's kind of already had that story. And Mike, for you, was it a similar case of right place, right time to get into the offshore stuff?
Yeah, absolutely, and you never know when that opportunity's going to come along, and lots of people here will know the names Peter Boyd and Murray Ross, and Boyd, he asked me to sail on Murray Ross's boat called Satellite Spy for the Coastal Classic, and I just won the Elliott 5.9 Nationals, was my big claim to fame, and we were halfway up the northern coast, and Murray asked me if I wanted to have a steer, and I said, yeah, I'm in, why not? And at Cape Breton, I was still driving, and, suddenly I had a lot of legends around me, and I was driving Satellite Spy, and we won. And about 10 rum and cokes later in Russell, Murray said to me, "Why don't you do the Whitbread race?" And I assumed it was a rum and coke talking, and and I'd had plans to do the next one. So they'd just finished 89.90 with Steinlager and F&P, and so we're literally in Russell. And he said, "Well, I think you should apply for Grant Dalton's New Zealand Endeavour." And I thought he was kidding, that was too good to be true. Anyway, 2 weeks later, we turn up for a squadron race, and he said, "I've just spoken to Dalton, he hasn't heard from you." And I said, "Oh, mate, you're having me on." He goes, "No. Anyway, in those days, it was the same as, it's what we'd all read about. So I stood in the queue with 100 other people outside the squadron here, and had an interview with the rest of New Zealand for New Zealand Endeavour. And
sounds like that scene on Pirates of the Caribbean when they're trying out for Johnny Depp's butt.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit like that. It was probably closer to Star Wars, where Harrison Ford was fixing the door on the studio when he got roped in. But I certainly felt like an imposter, and suddenly I was there as the 5'9" sailor, and I just watched Trey and Shube and Doltz and all these guys on not only Steinlager but in Fremantle in '87, and and next minute I'm out there yachting around with them. I remember our first act off the Northland Coast, and we made a pact not to talk about this, so breaking a cone. But our first time we ever put a shoot up on New Zealand Endeavour, and we were at North Cape, and we'd literally launched the boat, and we were sailing to Wellington for the launching, and it was all a bit proper, and I was feeling a bit out of my place. And anyway, I think Shube said, "Moose, you can do the brace, right?" And I said, "Yeah, it's easy." Okay, pole coming back, grinders clipped in, ground the pole back, brace was clipped to the pulpit, not the spinnaker. So boat, brand new maxi ketch, on its way to the launching, back comes the pulpit off the bow, with 6 grinders quite efficiently wound it off, and that was one of my opening scenes on New Zealand Endeavour. And that's been under a cone of silence since 1993, so it just shows that the cone works well, and this video footage is editable.
It's probably quite good to hear for a lot of people out there that you can screw something up pretty bad. And,
especially when you're 22.
Still do not bad in your career.
Yeah. Exactly.
So sticking with the offshore stuff, I guess, you've all got the foot in the door, you're out there. Is it something when you're on the wheel, do you think you kind of just take over and anyone can grow to love it? Or do you think you really need to have it up there in that top couple of inches, or can you learn it?
I think you can definitely learn it, and good dinghy sailors will always make good offshore sailors if they don't mind getting a bit cold and wet every now and again. But sticking with the New Zealand Endeavour stories, I remember back, my trial for that was the Fastnet race, and I got to steer for the first time at night ever on a boat with a wheel during the Fastnet going downwind. And the instrument systems back in those days weren't that good. There was a bit of a lag, and I was trying to steer by the numbers and just having an absolute shocker. Couldn't see anything. And Glenn Sowry sort of put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Mate, just forget about the instruments at all and just go with what you feel." So I did that, and it was fine. And that's what I say. If you can sail a dinghy well, then you're going to be able to sail an offshore boat very well also.
Bianca, was there a moment for you the first time you got behind the wheel on Turn the Tide?
Well, yeah, because I came in very late, so I was kind of told at the beginning, you're not going to be a driver, which is fine. I was there to do the pit, and that was my role, and I owned it. But I did get a chance in both Southern Oceans, actually, and in the first Southern Ocean, I got handed the helm, and it's just the most incredible feeling for me, beaming smile from ear to ear, because I'm in the Volvo Ocean race at the helm in the Southern Ocean. So yes, it's an incredible feeling, and yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, the instruments are there and they're important, but it's definitely all about the way the boat feels and the waves.
So obviously, driving these boats must be pretty cool. I, for one, get seasick going out to Waiheke. But, Emma, obviously seasickness isn't one of the ideal scenarios, but sailors going offshore do get seasick. It's one of, it's something that's just part and parcel with going offshore. What other kind of factors do you need to deal with when you're going out there?
Where to start? Well, I think seasickness is one of them, but I think tiredness, exhaustion. I think all of my offshore sailing has set me up well for being a mother. For any mothers out there, sleepless nights, those first few weeks, it's kind of like that all the time. There's just not a whole lot of sleep going on. You've got to be really good at napping, short naps, just get the energy where you can, fueling your body so you can keep concentrating. Shorthanded racing is very different from the ocean racing with a team where you can have, watch systems going on, kind of 4 on, 4 off-ish. You miss a few off watches, but I think getting your sleep right is quite key.
Is that something you can practice, or you've got to be learning when you're out there? You're never going to be able to kind of,
Well, I never practiced at all. So the first time I tried was when I went out there, and then going back to ocean racing. I think after so I did some double-handed racing with Sam Davies, who's now Fonday, obviously was a Volvo Ocean Race skipper, and we did a double-handed delivery together. And then we went back to our fully crewed ocean racing together and really savoured the watch system where you actually got all this extra sleep and things. So that was, fully crewed, you get a lot more sleep.
I've got a good story for that. And I can tell I'm just going to be in charge of stories tonight, But
I was just going to ask you for a story.
Yeah, I've got a good one, and Emma's involved in this. So as you might have seen from some of the video, Emma is good friends with Alan MacArthur. And Alan was here for one of her charities, as it turned out, about 2 months before I was due to embark on my one and only single-handed race. And anyway, we're a couple of bottles of wine down, and Alan says, "Moose, you're going to hallucinate." I'm like, fuck off. There's no way. Anyway, she goes, yeah, 100%. You're going to get so tired that you're going to start seeing things and hearing things, and you will 100% believe it. Oh, yeah, whatever, go. Well, yeah, not for me. No, that won't happen to me. Anyway, I'm 3 days into this race across the Atlantic, and I'm mentally preparing for this change from the code 0 to the chute, and I am absolutely knackered. And I'm sitting in the cockpit, and I have to take a minute, because I can hear, as clear as we're sitting here today, Richard Meacham, Chris Salthouse, and Jeremy Lomas downstairs in the boat. 3 of my best mates. And I can, it took all my power to not stick my head down the hatch and say, listen, if you guys are going to be there, at least you can come and give me a hand with the change, And it was as clear as day. So that night, I had a scheduled call with the guy doing the press for me, and I said, listen, I had a moment today. I hallucinated and I just thought you should know because I'm obviously pretty tired. And he goes, oh, that's nothing. Your mate Nick Maloney put an official protest into the race committee that the guy next door had a whole team on the bow of his boat. So at least you were smart enough to keep it to yourself. So, when you get that tired, some weird shit goes on. And I made the mistake, and as we're all capable of doing something dumb. So my boat had a beautiful, big, curved nav station that theoretically could turn around and sleep. And I thought, that's just a whole lot of weight. I don't need any of that stuff. So I got the boat builders and we chopped it all off, and I was literally ended up sitting on a perch a bit like this. And I remember sitting at the nav station working away, and then when I woke up, I was sort of mid-air about here, going, no, this is not good. And I'd fallen asleep, launched off a wave, and just crashed on the floor. But yeah, it was sleep deprivation, solo and shorthanded, and we'll get into that later on, but that's the biggest. Time management, sleep management,
So it's probably,
energy management.
you know, there's a few golden rules that I'm sure you've learnt about how to deal with sleep, but outside of the sleep side of things, golden rules offshore, what's something that you definitely don't want to do, Stu, and what's the punishment if you did one of those things?
I heard a story that Moose had a rule on his boat, you weren't allowed to bring coffee on deck. And I'm not sure what...
$10,000 it was to have a coffee on deck.
There you go. But that's something that really annoys me if someone brings a coffee on deck and they're meant to be grinding and you call for a grind and they've got to put their coffee down before they
grinding
can have a
coffee's
grind.
no, you know.
Yeah. But when you're in a watch system, you've got to have respect for the watch system. And, you know, guys being laid on deck, even if it's a minute, it starts to gnaw away at you, and especially when everyone's getting tired, if that's consistently going on, then it just creates a really bad scene. And yeah, so just respect of the watch system, respect of the routines and the jobs that everyone's got to do. If everyone can get along, then it makes a huge difference.
Obviously, communication's probably a big factor in that, and you've sailed in a lot of teams through the years. Obviously, the Frenchies in the last one. Any stories there of miscommunications?
There's a few. I remember one time I was actually asleep off watch, enjoying my sleep, and I got woken up. As one of the watch captains, I get a bunk next to the nav station, and I got woken up by Pascal and Charles actually screaming at each other about something. It was in French, obviously. I didn't have a clue what they're talking about.
I think they were just talking. Yeah.
No, they were screaming. So I had to have a few harsh words and rolled over and went back to sleep.
What about you, Bianca? Obviously, the crew dynamics so critical. You know, Stu said it might even be little things that start to, you know, eke. Is it something that you just work on as a team early on? You set the rules, or do you have to be quite dynamic with it throughout a leg, that if something's really irking you, you just step up and you say, hey, look, I've got issues here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think if you don't address it early, it gets worse and it gets worse, and then you actually get to the end of the leg where you're kind of at a point where it can just blow up. So it's really important to address things early. But one thing that annoyed me actually is when people are like day 2 talking about the food that they're going to eat when they get ashore. And you're like, yes, it's important, but we're in day 2 of the Southern Ocean leg. It's going to be a while until you get pizza. But do you got something to add there, mate?
Actually, the freeze-dried food's often better than what you get on shore anyway.
Yeah,
Is that on the you'll go on the record saying that?
Me and freeze dry aren't exactly the best of friends. Trey said to me, he goes, "Oh, we've got all this freeze dry. You know, you should take it. You should eat it. Maybe during the lockdown." But no. If I don't have to eat it, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I tried to do a wee gag during the Volvo Ocean Race Awards up at the Sky City. Just after dinner, I was asking everyone how the food was, and took a bite and literally nearly vomited on the stage. It was nearly the worst gag of all time. But the reason I'm talking about the communication, because obviously on a fully crewed boat it's really important, but if we're starting to look at the 2-person, the mixed crew going offshore, it's going to be extra vital. Emma, in your experience of, you know, the two-handed versus the fully crewed stuff, how are they similar, and I guess, you know, how are they different? Quite a big range there, but, you know, give us a couple of examples.
Yeah, so I think the double-handed, obviously, both members of the team need to be really good at everything. because when you're double handing, you're pretty much on deck on your own most of the time. It's wise to get the second person up to do most things, but pulling a reef in and out of the main is quite easy on your own with, when you've done it hundreds of times. But, you want the other person, when you're up on deck and they're checking the nav or making food, sleeping, doing all the other jobs you don't need to do from deck, you want to know that they're handy enough that they've spotted something navigation-wise, or go, wow, the other guys in the fleet have all tacked over, or you need someone that's going to be handy enough at nav, or recognise that the generator's making a different noise or something, You've basically got to be good at everything, and it's a lot handier if both people are good at everything, in my opinion. I would definitely choose someone that's, yes, they might have specific sail-making skills or be better at fixing a diesel engine issue, but I think you really need really good sailor and driver. So you really need some good all-round sailors. Was that answering your question?
Perfect, yeah. Mike, kind of talking, two-handed, and we'll start kind of merging that way now. We'll dip back to the offshore stories and stuff a little bit later when it comes up. But where's the scene at here in New Zealand at the moment? What's around for people? Obviously, you've got, the French that are probably, they are the world leaders in the short-handed stuff. Do you think New Zealand's, with an opportunity like this, heading towards something like the Olympics and having that as the pinnacle, could we get to that level? Could short-handed stuff really take off there?
Oh, I think, there's no doubt. You've only got to see what, New Zealanders want to do. Just looking at the entry is now, all our grandfathers and things roared off every weekend for Bolokovics and White Island races and all these things and turned up at 10 o'clock on Sunday night, and that's just not okay nowadays. So racing now is about, quick race after work or Saturday afternoon or two-handed and smaller team racing. So there's no doubt, even without it going into the Olympics, I think it's going into the Olympics because that's the way the world's going, and with its popularity. That would be my take on it. I mean, New Zealand's in a fantastic position here. I mean, it's going to be tough for 2024 because we are for sure behind the French and the Brits and probably the Spanish as well at the moment. In that discipline, the Aussies are behind us. They're really only just latching onto it as a sport of recent times. They're talking about having it in the Hobart race, etc. Or in fact, this might be the first year that it's in the Hobart race. I think it's the way the world's going, and I mean it's seriously cool. I mean, single-handed sailing across the ocean is dangerous. It's unnecessarily dangerous to a certain extent. Two-handed is so much safer, it's so much cooler, you get to share it with someone, you are basically, as Emma said, you're basically sailing on your own, but, someone comes and gives you a break for half the time, and that's a big deal. You get to do so many things so much better two-handed than you do solo. But to answer your question, New Zealand's primed. Our boats are all inherently that way inclined. New Zealand's sort of heading towards bowsprit-y, planing, reasonably powerful yet, high-performance boats. They've obviously given a criteria for what the Olympic boat's going to be in that sort of 30-foot range with a, asymmetric chute and, square top mains and bits and pieces and, it's what Kiwis love to do, is to make boats like that work. So we will be good at it as a nation. We've just got to catch up a little quite quickly on the Figaro stuff. But again, what everyone's doing with the Lumar Triple Series and things is only going to help.
Yeah. So on that note, the Lumar Triple Series, Stu, are you going to be involved?
I'm actually going to make my debut in terms of two-handed sailing. Going to front up on a Stuart 34 for the first race.
Is this a sign of...
As I was saying, lightweight, planing boats, Brennan.
Thought I'd start off in a boat that I know reasonably well, having done a few years in them quite a few years ago. But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. It's going to be a nice challenge. It's only a day race, so we don't have to stay out overnight with a bit of luck.
With a bit of luck. Bianca, for you, obviously, it's eyes fully set on the ocean race at the moment and everything that comes with trying to run a campaign and pull everything together. Looking ahead, though, 2024 is, you know, after the next ocean race. Is that something you got your eyes set on?
I think, yeah, I mean, with all the talk at the moment of the race potentially being delayed a year, that's another year that if I was interested in doing the two-handed, that you would lose because you're training for the ocean race. I think it's amazing, but yeah, at the moment I'm kind of focusing on trying to get a New Zealand boat on that start line, one shape or another. But yeah, the two-handed series in New Zealand is fantastic. I mean, you only had to look at the entry list for the round North Island earlier this year, and it was overflowing. And it's an incredible fleet, one of the strongest fleets that we have here in New Zealand, the keelboat sailing, and I'd definitely be keen to get more involved in it for sure.
And Emma, how about you? What do you think about the inclusion of this new class in 2024?
Oh, I think it's fantastic because it's such a big part of the whole sailing with the America's Cup, with the Volvo Olympics, and it's just merging them a little bit more with some offshore sailing. I think it's great. Are you asking if I'm going to get involved?
Yes.
Less likely.
Can I answer that?
Well, I'll throw it to you. We just saw in the video you talked about your Mount Everest, your Olympic gold medal, but now actually you've got a chance to win an actual Olympic gold medal. So now it's the perfect opportunity. And then you can go climb Mount Everest and do the trifecta.
No, I mean, I would love to help someone do it, you know, in all honesty. You know, I think, as I said before, I think Kiwis are prime candidates to be very good at this. I think we're very good in, you know, in this space, and I would certainly love to help someone do it. No, I mean, I've got, you know, my hands full with a small company in Rosebank Road, and so that's where my focus is there, and with my family, and I'm really enjoying the huge range of sailing which I still do. You know, for sure, I had conversations with my wife about doing this last two-handed round the North Island race, but we just decided the kids were a bit young. But, you know, certainly it was, you know, one of the things which, you know, brings me close, you know, makes me really emotional is my 10-year-old boy, you know, watching, you know, Andrew and Will start the two-handed race on Anarchy. He said, "Dad, can we do that one day?" And I was like, you know, that just about got me in the you know, a couple of deep breaths, and, you know, that would be a dream. So I'd have to add that to my now quite cliched Volvo speech that, you know, going around the North Island with my son would be quite a milestone in my life.
Which is great, but are you ruling it out?
Yeah, I'm ruling it out. Yeah, I'm ruling it out. As I said, I'd love to be a part of it, you know, and I'd certainly be, you know, I'd certainly want to help someone do it. But yeah, by then I'll be 52, and you know, I'd love to think there was someone as stupid as I was at 34 or younger that was, you know, had the drive and the skills and, you know, just the raw hunger to go out there and push to whatever it takes, you know, and I think that's, you know, that's what we've all got to have in us if you want to tick those boxes.
And Stu, you don't need to answer this, but if it's something that's, you know, does it interest you, or if it doesn't, if you know you'd like to help someone into it, what's it going to take for, for people out there that are here tonight or watching online? What makes a good two-handed sailor? What's the skill set? Just how do they get into it?
I think Moose touched on it, and there's a couple of ways of looking at it. If you're going for the Olympic campaign, then it does require 100% dedication. And I think the choice of going down the two-handed offshore class is probably going to be potentially the most demoralising at the end. There's a very good chance that one offshore race could be decided by a lottery in the wind. And that's not the case with all of the other Olympic sailing classes. So if you are going to go down that road, you've got to be, I think, mentally prepared for the fact that you could be the favourite going into it and finish 20th through no fault of your own.
Yeah, and I guess early on you were quite critical about it, and particularly around the Mediterranean does have its own curveballs. You could have the Mistral, but you could also have a float off, and I guess also with the Olympics maybe move into a 24-hour channel. I've also got my worries that it'll flick over to sailing, which on the offshore stuff can be the most brutal and exciting things, and then you've got two people cruising along and people go, that's not for me.
Yeah, and I'll just add to my last comment, it could come down to the flip of a coin, the roll of a dice at the end, but for someone that's taken it on, you don't do it for that gold medal at the end, you do it for the journey along the way. I did an Olympic campaign a very long time ago. I missed out on qualifying, but I have zero regrets. I had two of the greatest years of my life travelling around doing Olympic class regattas all over the world, and I wouldn't not do that again at all. I had an absolutely fantastic time. So you've got to enjoy it along the way and not just be too focused on the end result.
How long is the intention for the Olympic racing to be? And I guess with that, what is the general makeup? And Bianca, we talked about it a little bit earlier. What are they planning? And pass it on if you're not so sure.
Yeah, so the one thing that I do know for a fact is it's going to be mixed crew, and there's going to be a female and a male. We were talking about it a bit earlier, but I haven't really looked too much into it, but I know that they're not going to be foiling boats, and I believe the race is going to be about 72 hours, is that correct?
Yeah, most obviously you...
I've followed it. I mean, the current thinking, and it's still up in the air, is that it will be 3 races, and there'll be 3 different... The lengths will get longer through the process. So they're expecting it to be based on time. So they will move the distance depending on what the forecast is, etc. To a certain degree. And I was fortunate enough to spend time last year with Stan Honey, who's on the committee on Comanche, and he was saying that the current intention is that, if you finish a minute ahead on the first leg, you take that minute into the second leg, and then so you could be 25 minutes behind going into the last race, take a flyer, win by half an hour, and win the gold medal. So it's back to how the Volvo race, Whitbread race was in the Steinlager days. It's cumulative time, basically. And it will make it exciting. Just saying it out loud, as Stu pointed out, some people are in for a disappointment, but maybe it means we've all got a chance of winning a gold medal as well. So certainly anyone that's there anyone that qualifies is in for a shot, and it'll be fascinating racing.
And obviously, just with that qualification, we talked about it a little bit earlier as well, is that the boats are potentially not going to be announced till early 2024 or late 2023. So all the qualification is potentially going to be in different boats, which presents its own challenges of putting the best person forward if it's going to be different.
Yeah, and just to follow on from my previous point, obviously that model is following the French Figaro model. So that's a cumulative time event. and which is hugely successful. And you know, they come down to the last leg, and they're all, you know, the top 20 boats are within inside 3 minutes. So the French have this method of going offshore racing down pat. They're also very good at it. And the Brits and the Spanish are sort of on the fringes, but the French are going to be particularly tough at their own Olympics and their own discipline.
We've talked. I'll jump in right there. Why are they so good? Is it just that they've done it for so long and they've kind of passed on these learnings?
Well, Emma can comment here, and well, both, you know, Emma and Stu are more qualified than Bianca and I to comment on this for sure. You know, Emma's lived in the Figaro world and Paula Ferret and in the single-handed world, and Stu got to sail around the world with a whole lot of Figaro sailors. So over to you guys. You know, why are they good at it?
Well, I did a two-handed Figaro race, so I did a whole training there, and I think they've done it for so many years, and all the best sailors go through. It's like the stepping stone. You wouldn't go straight into a Vendée Globe. It's a stepping stone, so they've all worked through, and they all start as a préparateur, which is a boat person that helps their skipper, and they learn from young, and they go through the whole system. It's very a hierarchy thing, and so they've helped their skipper, and they do all the menial jobs possible, and then they meet the men to each stopover of their race. So they generally race 2 to 3 days. They stop in port for maybe 2 days, and that préparateur does all the jobs possible, and the skipper will have as much sleep and food, and then come in and check everything's right, and then they head off again. And so most of the people I have seen over the last, so I sailed them 20 years ago, and the préparateurs and the sailors we knew, the Figaro sailors have become Vendée sailors and Open 60 sailors, and the préparateurs have become their own skippers and got these younger guys in, and it's amazing. You see them also, they've learnt a long way, and all the tricks.
But there's definitely a sense of earning your keep, and I think it comes from all the stories, you know, of how you got into it. There's a degree of right place, right time, but there's also a massive degree of just putting yourself out there, and I think, Stu, that's probably something you can touch on for people that are going, what do? I want to go to the Olympics in 2024, but I don't know the avenue to get there. I don't know who I want to sail with, and is it just about putting yourself out there and you know, asking people, talking?
It is, and you know, the establishment of the two-handed offshore class, they're in small boats. They're still expensive in terms of Olympic campaigning, but you know, there's some great opportunities here in Auckland. There's a lot of boats in the two-handed series, and you know, I know a lot of people are giving opportunities to younger guys and girls to get into it. And then it just comes back to that commitment and just learning. You know, I was fortunate to spend some time in Port La Ferret last year with the Figaro camp that was going on there. And they've taken the level of, I guess, training and preparation to a level similar to what, you know, I hear the British Olympic team do with their fins and so on, where they're running training camps with 10 boats and coaches and debriefs, and they're doing it at a really, really high level. And, you know, it'd be great if that kind of culture would start happening here in Auckland. I see no reason why it can't.
And probably comes down to people in this room of just putting their hands up and getting into it.
Absolutely, and you know, the Shorthanded Sailing Association can probably take the lead, and so, you know, anyone that's interested, start running some debriefs and just talking about decision making, sail changes, you know, and just start really raising the level of the whole fleet, and everyone benefits.
And it's a proven method of, as soon as you get the snowball effect going, is, you know, you get some good boats going and they start bringing the others up, and if you're good as a group, you're going to really challenge as a whole for an Olympic gold, hopefully, in 2024, and I think that should be the goal for New Zealand and people here to aspire to that. And Bianca, although you're looking at the ocean race as being the big goal, any offshore experience is still really vital, and I think even through this process, you're still going to be involved. I guess a North Island race is still something you'd look to do, so you're still going to be an integral part of that.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a very good point what you said. Anyone that's in this room is clearly quite interested in doing two-handed offshore sailing. So this is a great starting point. And, I've always looked at the Round North Island as, an amazing race that I've always wanted to do. I haven't quite got there yet, but it's an amazing association that you guys have set up here, and there is some good racing, and it is important that you guys are backing each other up and having those conversations about how the fleet as a whole can become a bit more competitive.
And Emma, just talking about the crews and getting a big fleet out there, and you're going to get a wide range of people with a massive range of skill sets, and is it a one size fits all kind of approach to it, or how do you approach the two-handed stuff? Are stereotypes out the window? Does everyone just kind of play the same role? How do you see it working as a crew dynamic?
Oh, I think everyone is so different. I think you will just find the person you click with and compliment and respect and want to sail with. So I think as long as you tick all the basic boxes of capability in terms of sailing, and you've got to keep the boat together is a big part of it, and learning when to back off, and there's a lot thrown at you. So I think really just having someone that you trust with your life is quite a big deal. But yeah, I think as long as you've ticked all the basic boxes of what you can do, it's just got to be someone you get on with and trust.
And what do you think, Mike? A skill set for is there going to be a box that needs to be ticked? If you were to do it,
Yeah.
what's the critical thing that you would be looking for in someone?
Oh, I think there's just so many facets to it, and we could be here all night talking about what's required. I mean, I think one of the worst races Emma and I have ever had was when we went two-handed racing together for the first time. And, I thought I was racing with Emma Richards, I was racing with Emma Richards, the single-handed legend, and she was sailing with Mike Sanderson, the Volvo sailor. And we didn't get the chemistry right. She thought we'd be right because he knows what he's doing, and I thought she'd be right because, so we didn't get it right. I'd come from the Volvo world, we pushed too hard, I broke the boat, I smashed everything, Yes, we port-tacked the fleet off the start and got a great photo, which is still on the wall today, but apart from that, we really didn't get anything right. So, I think, getting that right, getting that chemistry right, getting that person right, I think, our responsibility, and again, all of us here, is to get the culture in New Zealand, keep growing the culture, I think anything that we can do to get the types of boats sailing together to raise that level, like we've got a great fleet of 40-footers, I see we've got a great fleet of 88s, entered in the fleet, the Stewarts, anything we can do to type the boats together, like even the SR26s versus those other similar type boats, so that we're pushing each other along, is going to be what's required, because, at the end of the day, fast sailors make boats go fast, and fast boats win races. So the reality is in 2024, the most likely crew is going to be someone like your brother, and someone equally as talented and strong and good sailor as his female partner in the New Zealand 2024. But they need to come out and beat all of us.
I often think of Blair and Pete as a married couple.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe Pete just wears a wig and they make it work.
But I mean, your brother in particular is a perfect candidate. But what we need to do is get all the culture and the crew and the establishment, so they've got to come out and beat us all, to earn that spot. And so we've definitely got to build the culture which is going to produce someone who's capable of winning a gold medal. And it could well be someone in this room that pops out as that person, but we are going to have to do everything we can to build that culture and learn from each other.
Yeah, and the dynamic and the chemistry is obviously, such an important factor, but how do you choose that? I mean, in any Olympic campaign with, two people that are campaigning together, you're spending a lot of time with that person, let alone going offshore, and your training means you're together a lot longer anyway. It's going to be a whole different kettle of fish that no one's ever seen before.
I think it's going to be a really hard one, and you're not going to know until you actually go out there and do it. As Mike said, he thought it was all going to be fine, but it wasn't. So, yeah, you can do all you like to find the right person on paper, but until you actually go out there and sail together and get sleep deprived and come under a bit of pressure and see how each other get on and back each other up, then you're not really going to know.
Yeah, it's definitely easy to go down the line of what could be bad about it, and definitely don't want to get into that tonight, because on the flip side, if it does work, Stu, there's no better feeling than going offshore and doing well out there, winning.
Oh, that's right, but as I mentioned before, it's got to be about the journey. And I think everyone in this room is here because they love sailing. The gold medal is, it's something to aspire to, but at the end of the day, we're all here because we love sailing and getting the best out of it that we can. So we've got to enjoy that first and foremost, and then, you make your goals from there, whatever they might be.
And Bianca, for you, obviously the last year or more has been pretty full with the campaign, and through that time you would have got a good insight into where New Zealand sailing's at, looking at building a New Zealand team, and do you think it's in a good place?
For an ocean race team, or
just ocean racing in general?
Yeah.
Are the people out there, or do we really need to help the young people come through?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I've received quite a lot of CVs from a lot of people that really, really want to go offshore, and it's a bit of a shame that we've found that our society has kind of come into the situation with the Auckland to Fiji race being cancelled, because that would have been a really good chance for us to kind of get offshore, because the offshore sailing that they used to have back in the 90s we don't really see anymore. But I think the two-handed fleet, it's really dominating all of the club racing, and I aspire to do the Round North Island race, so I think that the team's getting competitive there. There's definitely a chance for there to be a good combo, but Stu's right. I mean, the only way to find out if a team's going to work or not is just to go out there and do it. You'll learn pretty quickly if you can get along with somebody for a week, a month, a year. That if you can do all the training ashore, but until you actually go out there and you're sleep deprived, you're not going to know if it's going to work or not.
Did you do have any hallucinations during your Volvo time?
I don't know if I had hallucinations, but I know that a couple of us did talk in our sleep, which probably annoyed everybody else.
Just for the record, I didn't hallucinate during the Volvo race.
Talking about the sleep talking, one of the Mat Pro boys was asking me about it, and I'm like, mate, you were at shore. I lived with that for 4 years in a bunk room. Like, put up with it, all right? But with that, there's going to be exciting times that happen offshore. Like, through this experience, everyone in this room is going to have an opportunity to, make new friends, and I think it does come back to a lot of the rum races. There's good times. It's a massive social aspect that opens the door here that you don't see in other sports, and I think having the offshore side of things is going to be something different that no one's ever seen before.
Yeah, if I can just chime in there too, I think 2024 is far enough away that, in my opinion, people shouldn't be worrying about their team right now. I think what you should be worrying about is doing the very best sailing at the highest level that you can do, putting your best foot forward that you can in every opportunity to maximise, each time you're on the water. And I think we can all be better at that. We can all be better prepared, spend more time on the weather, fitter, and I think any time that you can get to go sailing with someone new and learn their quirks and learn how to get on with a team and I don't think right now it'll be about who's got the best duo in 2020 that's going to represent in New Zealand, and I think it's probably more than 2.5 years away before that team could be put together. Right now, in my opinion, you've got to become the best two-handed sailor, girl or guy, in New Zealand, and there's a very good chance that those two people will naturally get closer together and that opportunity will arise, because you learn a lot, good or bad, sailing with different people. So if I was between 20 and 30 now, I'd be trying to sail any time I could, with as good a people as I could convince to take me, and that'll be the secret to this, girl or guy.
Stu, coming back to you, with 2024, is 4 years away, and it's going to be a short cycle on the back end of that, but critical early on. Have you come around a little bit to the idea of 2024? Is it something you'd be interested in? In general, are you okay with the event going ahead? Because it's happening.
I'm totally fine with it going ahead. As I said before, it's people are going to have to manage their expectations. I'm probably in the same position that Mike is. I'd love to be involved and help someone and lend the experience I have to a program. I can't see myself doing it, to be honest. One of the hardest things is with any Olympic campaign, that's what I found back when I did it, was raising the money to do it properly. I didn't manage to raise enough money to do it properly. That's, as with any campaign, I know Bianca's going through that right now with the ocean race, finding the money to do it to the highest level that you want to do it is the hardest part.
Is there things that people could be doing differently, or do you think that collectively, if this room and people in New Zealand get that strong, force behind the single, so the short-handed sailing, do you think that would help bring it up in general and make the funding easier for people?
Absolutely. And, as I mentioned before, if all the people in this room would sort of buy into the concept of doing debriefs and a bit of training, apart from just going racing, I know time is precious for people and not everyone in this room wants to go to the Olympics. But for those that do, they could sort of lead the charge and drag a few other people along the way, and everyone's going to get better and get a bit more enjoyment out of it.
And Bianca, the move to the mix is obviously a great opportunity for females, young and old. I mean, the range here is quite special, and it's going to be something that I don't think we've seen, because for you, 2024, you might be busy with an ocean race, but also 2028, Los Angeles is an option, and 2032 going forward could be an option as well. And I think that's one of the great things about sailing in general, is you don't have you're not kind of barriered by time as much. We saw Santi Lang, win a gold. You don't have that time barrier, which is exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I don't know what else to say to that. It is exciting. I mean, it's good to see that this isn't going to be, back to the Elliott Sixes, women's match racing. That was only in the Olympics for one round and then out. So it's good to see that they have actually committed to having this in the Olympics for 2 cycles. So it's something that you might not be going to the first Olympics, but if it's something that you really want to do, then you're going to do everything you can to try and get there for the second one. So yeah, it's exciting.
And we'll just finish up before we open to the floor. Mike, speaking of kind of getting around it, Doyle's obviously going to implement some, quite a fun thing along the Sands trophy to run. Yeah,
we were trying to think of a way of helping promote this in New Zealand, and with the Lumar Triple Series coming up, which Doyle's are sponsoring the first race. Throughout the whole series, we've spoken to Sands, and what we're going to do is have a trophy or have an award for each race, which will be subjective. So, for example, if there's 10 young 88s and you come third, that might, on this panel's perspective, get you the trophy compared to if you win B division with only 3 boats or 4 boats or something. So it will start off this year with its objective, and hopefully something will grow and will generate a formula. So we'll have not only an individual, each race will have an overall mixed crew winner within the series. So, I mean, there's no doubt it's the future. You know, it's going to be a very important part of our sport going forward. And, you know, we'd love to help. We've got lots of skills within the building which can help talk about, you know, the many facets of making boats go fast and things. So, yeah, we're here to help.
That's brilliant. And one question I did just have for Emma that I missed, and I don't want this, you know, to be a conversation about stereotypes and the male versus, you know, female factor heading into 2024, but there's no doubt that in New Zealand there is a roadblock for young females coming through. They reach a certain age and then they don't continue on in the sport. Obviously, Emma, in 2003, you were, you know, the only female in a fleet of 13. What would be your advice to, you know, a young female sailor coming through, and not to say that they, you know, that they can't do anything, but there does seem to be a barrier here in New Zealand that young female sailors aren't taking it through to the next level.
Yeah, I think I like to think, I might be wrong, that I just wanted to do it so much it wouldn't have mattered whether I was male or female. But, you know, in a way, I guess it probably helped me in the end. I was going to be the only female, so therefore more media for your sponsor. But I like to think that my result at the end, I came 4th out of 14 boats, that I wasn't just there making up numbers as a female in the race. So, yeah, it's really tricky conversation actually, because the fact is I was the smallest, I wasn't the strongest, and you have to make up, you know, just think a bit smarter and all the rest. So, yeah,
women were dominating single-handed sailing in that era. You know, there was a picture up there before of Ellen and Emma, and you know, Ellen won the 60-foot division in the All-Star, and Emma won the 50-foot division.
Yeah, in 2000.
And it's in 2000, and you know, we had, you know, started off with some famous names like Florence Artaud and you know,
Isabella
Tissier, and there were some amazing names, and you know, it's been carried on to a certain extent, but you know, in that single-handed world. But it's a shame that the momentum of Alan and Emma, who got the results, it's beyond, you know, they got the results, and I mean, the women are better at it fundamentally at that. You know, they're smarter with their time management, and you know, they're very good single-handed strategists. You know, I think, and I know that's a gross generalisation, but you know, I was still, you know, there was, you know, raced against a lot of them in my Open 60 campaign, and you know, suddenly the size is very levelling. You could be much smarter than you can be stronger. You know, and
it comes back to that conversation about, you know, not shying away, I think, from natural strengths and weaknesses, and actually just owning it and saying, yep, you are better at that than me, so you do that, and I'm gonna take this role.
Can I just add something to that? I've found, you know, so I've spent a lot of time working overseas in different countries, and it's actually not just New Zealand that's having an issue with women sailors coming through, but I found that the industry here in New Zealand is a lot more warming and a lot more welcoming, and actually I found as I've gotten a bit older that our industry here in New Zealand are a lot more respectful and actually talk to you on a much even playing field. I've found in other countries, I've just been asked, you know, what are you doing here? Kind of, are you the stewardess, or are you the office clerk sort of situation? I heard a situation today where, you know, a girl, she's been rigging for almost 3-4 years, and she went into a factory and they asked if she was from the office. You know, it does happen, but I have found here in New Zealand our industry is a lot better at it. And, you know, there's boats like Anarchy where, you know, there's more girls on there than guys, which is fantastic to see. I know that, you know, my dad, for example, has Ranger, and, you know, back in the day when that boat was built, there's no way there would have been a female on board. But we've definitely changed over time, and, you know, Maiden, when they went around the world, they were told they were going to die. So, you know, everyone's ideas are kind of changing, and it's good to see that New Zealand is actually really trying to, you know, make a bit of a difference. And, I mean, there's some fantastic women sailors out there, and that have changed the pathways for us younger sailors coming through. I'm not young, but younger sailors coming through, and it's awesome to see that, you know, these sports are really taking a leap and going towards that mixed sailing. And yeah, absolutely, when you're coming to sailing, you really do need to think about strengths and where you put the stronger person, and if it's tactics or pure lifting, then, you know, it's just a fact, really. But no, it's good.
Yeah, and obviously it's an exciting time with change, and obviously it's a big change for 2024. With change creates big opportunity for a whole new class, and potentially create a whole new, you know, scene here, and get back to the glory days of when Emma was charging around and more successful than you. You know,
I got used to that.
you know, but we could get back to that, and you've touched on it, Mike, Stu, both of you have, you know, put your hand up and said we're here to help. So for people out there, what do they do? How do they reach out to you? Oh, someone's already there.
That's our kids, mum's kids getting ready for bed alarm.
Yeah. So good time, Stu. You know, what do they do? You know, how do they reach out to you? You know, to lend your skills and expertise.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think I'm pretty approachable. Anyone can give me a call or send me a message on email or Facebook or whatever it is. And, you know, as Mike said, there's a lot of very skilled and talented people within the Doyle operation, and, you know, as he said, we're here to help in whatever way we can, you know, whether it's making boats go fast or talking about how to manage a campaign or whatever it might be.
And Mike, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, it'd be really useful to continue to have, you know, some gatherings in whatever forum we choose to do it, because there's so much, you know, that which we can all get into and have an open discussion, you know, about sail changing techniques and you know, navigation techniques and time management techniques. And, you know, we'd be crazy as New Zealanders not to, you know, to drag Emma down here or to somewhere and make her give us, you know, 45 minutes of her time to tell us about how she did it. And so there's lots of tricks there which, you know, are 100% relevant, you know, when to slow boats down, when to speed them up, what you can do to make sail changes faster, what you can do to cut metres off the track. And so I think, you know, if we all get behind this movement, if you like, of mixed two-handed sailing and embrace it, you know, share around ideas, and we, you know, I think it's the more we can do to get collectively better at this, you know, it's going to show on the world stage, and that's going to be good for us all.
But Mike, Emma, Bianca and Stu, thank you very much once again for lending us, you know, all your advice tonight. It's been absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure you'll enjoy mixing and mingling with everyone out there. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.